Minister.
My officials continue to process application, and as the Minister with responsibility for this planning decision, I will fully consider the recommendations that comes from them before taking any decision in the public interest. I am aware of the number of responses to this planning application, as well as the opposition which exists both locally and among some colleagues. My department, in considering all representations to any application, will give proper consideration to their content where they raise material planning issues. However, this question is about a live planning application. As the Minister who would ultimately take the decision on the application, it is important in the interest of transparency to ensure that no prejudice is caused to any party involved in the process. As such, it would not be appropriate for me to make specific comments on the planning merits or otherwise of this application at this time.
Dr. Reagan.
I thank the Minister for his response. The issue, Minister, for everybody who's in the Antrim and Newtown Borough Council area and the rest of it, and indeed for his own MLAs who have sat with me in platforms about ARC 21 and what it's been doing about the Hightown incinerator, is the case that's been there all the way through, that there is no grid connection, that there is no business case, that there is no reason for this to be built where
Dr.
it is.
Reagan?
I did indeed. I'm getting to it, Mr. Speaker.
Well, can we get to it?
The question is, why are officials in your department talking directly to Beacon to see if they can adjust the planning rules and regulations so that they can meet the requirements to go for this, when it's very clear that whatever has been put forward is not going to work? Over to you, Minister.
Minister.
Thank you, Concordia, and thank the member for his question, and I will thank you. In terms of why are my officials engaging with an applicant, it's not unusual. Officials will engage with applicants in regards to planning applications if they require and seek further information or clarification in regards any matter. It would be, as I said, it would be inappropriate for me to go into the merits of this planning application or any other planning application before my officials have had the proper opportunity to engage on the matter and make a recommendation to me. Once a recommendation is made to me, I will then make my decision based on the evidence presented to me.
Jerry Kelly.
Good week, Slesson. I thank the Minister for his answer up tonight. Would the Minister consider holding a public inquiry to allow for a detailed independent examination before a final decision is issued?
Well, a public inquiry is necessary when it's likely to elicit further information on material considerations where those considerations have not been adequately addressed by the planning application. I'm obviously aware there's been a previous public inquiry in this application in October 2016. The decision on whether or not to hold a further public inquiry to consider the additional further environmental information is a decision that I will make when officials have completed processing the application and provided me advice in this respect.
Blair.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Minister how he will ensure that residents' concerns in relation to the incinerator on issues including but not limited to traffic, residential amenity, visual amenity and of course pollution will be given appropriate weight going forward?
All relevant material evidence presented as part of this planning application will be given the weight it deserves as part of the planning process.
David Honeyford. Minister.
The York Aviation Report calls for the development of an airport policy, and I welcome the fact that this is now in development. Our airports play an important role for our economy, providing the vital connectivity we as an island rely on. Primary responsibility for the development of the policy lies with the Department for the Economy. Given the importance of the airport connectivity to future growth and success, I am keen that my officials are consulted on the development of the policy. Preliminary discussions have already taken place between officials, and I expect this will continue during policy development. The York Aviation Report also calls for a clear structure of responsibility for aviation policy development within the North, and I have helped provide a pathway for this by agreeing in principle to the transfer of my airport responsibilities to the Department for the Economy. The current split in responsibility is a consistent cause of concern amongst airport and airline stakeholders, as they believe it leads to a lack of coherence. The steps I have taken, along with the development of an airport policy, should help address this issue.
Mr. Hollyford.
That every year we're currently paying for reduced air passenger duty. Can you provide an assessment of how imminent long-haul flights from Belfast may be, and what DFI are doing to assist in that?
I missed the start of your question, but I think it was in relation to sorry, perhaps our passenger duty. Thank you, Cancolia. My department has no role or remit in regards our passenger duty. Those matters fall under the DFE.
Patrick Largy.
Good morning, Cancolia, and thank the Minister for his answers so far. Minister, what is the rationale behind DFI's airport powers transferring to DFE?
It is, in my opinion, to make a more coherent policy direction for our airports. DFE have the significant proportion of already of those airport responsibilities, and I think that those small matters that I look after in terms of land management adjacent to airports and to noise control would fit better with DFE and allow a singular point of contact for our airports.
Dan Armstrong.
Number 3.
Minister.
My department is the lead government department for the strategic coordination of the emergency response to significant flooding, and my officials have worked with partner organisations to develop a multi-agency severe weather plan for the emergencies that occur anywhere across the north. This plan details the pre-planned arrangements for a coordinated multi-agency response as a result of a weather warning for severe weather. The department's preparations for these responses to severe weather including flooding, is an ongoing process throughout the year. The unpredictable nature of weather events means heavy rainfall can occur at any time, and as winter arrives there can be an increased risk of adverse weather which could lead to flooding conditions. Within the area of the Fermanagh Lakelands, my department, along with multi-agency partners, has developed a specific plan for when water levels rise and agreed thresholds are reached on Upper Lough Erne. This plan has been developed through the Flooding and Severe Weather Group, which is chaired by my department, and assesses the risks and potential impact of water levels on low-lying roads in the locality around Lough Erne. In addition, and through the work of the Regional Community Flood Resilience Group, there has been engagement with the local Bow community group to help them prepare for and respond to weather-related emergencies, and to provide coordinated multi-agency support to individual properties or communities that may be caught up by floodwater and require access to essential services. Through this community resilience work, my department seeks to provide an extra layer of support in addition to the normal responses for those who may be impacted by flooding in periods of severe weather. In addition, my department operates an on-call duty and flooding officer rota system 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, with staff on standby to responding to a flood situations.
Nearly finished, Minister. Your time's up. Thank you. Dan Armstrong.
Minister, just to follow up, I take your assurances, and I just wonder what budget you have in place for mitigations in areas of historic flooding.
Minister.
I don't have the exact figures for budget allocation in front of me, but as with all areas of public services, the budgets are under constraint in relation to flooding response. But it has to be said, despite those constraints, and we can look towards the flooding incidents last year, my department, along with other departments, responded to that and responded to that emergency very well. Thank you.
Gemma Dillon.
Concordia, and I welcome the Minister's assurances, in particular around the Bow area. And in relation to the Fermanagh Lakelands, and please, I hope the Minister will answer this question, can the Minister provide an update on the upgrades to the Blake and Garrison wastewater treatment plants?
Minister, out of a distance.
I take your guidance.
It's up to you. It's the same region but different subject.
I'm aware that NI Water and East Erne have been jointly working together in this regard and have submitted a bid to the SUPB to have funding allocated to this project. I am optimistic that that funding bid will be successful. However, a formal announcement on it cannot take place until after the general election in the South.
Good answer for an unprepared question. Deborah Erskine.
Mr Speaker, and thank the Minister for his answers. This is related to flooding, but a different sort of way of asking around it. I've had quite a number of constituents come to me in relation to the flood maps being updated and their home insurance, and I was just wondering what conversations the Minister is having in relation to the high costs of home insurance for homeowners in flood areas that have now been updated. Is he having conversations with the FCA in relation to this?
Minister.
Thank the member for a question. Engagement with the FCA wouldn't fall under my remit. It may fall under the Department for the Economy or indeed the Department of Finance. The thing around the flood maps is that we do have now a very detailed analysis of where flooding is likely to occur. I accept that may cause challenges for some homeowners when they are identified in those flooding areas, but it does allow my department to plan an effective, efficient response to flooding and put in place measures such as flood defences going forward. So they have huge benefits to our society. I accept the point the member has made. I'm happy to engage with any group in that regard, but I will engage first and foremost with the Department of Finance, Department for the Economy, to ensure that I'm not stepping on anybody's toes.
Bobby Butler.
Number 4.
Minister. My goodness.
The member will be aware that rail services commenced from the new Belfast Grand Central Station on the 13th of October 2024. Translink have confirmed that despite the rigorous testing and training in the run-up to the opening, a small number of technical issues emerged in the first few days of operation. These were limited to train announcement issues and 2 services being altered by less than 5 minutes to accommodate passenger traffic flow. In addition, 1 set of point assets failed, which upon further investigation resulted in a component being replaced. Finally, delays on the cross-border network in the Greater Dublin area, coupled with seasonal constraints, resulted in minor delays to some trains. It is, however, important to emphasise that these are minor teething issues and that overall the opening of the Grand Central Station has resulted in passenger growth on both local and cross-border corridors.
Robbie Butler.
Thank the Minister for his response to that question. I thank the Minister for his written responses to the queries that have been raised with me by constituents who are citing service reliability issues, safety and capacity issues, economic impacts and environmental concerns where people are now finding themselves late for work, late for hospital appointments. Is the Minister open to a look at the timetabling of trains going to Grand Central and take into consideration those things that are impacting my constituents?
Thank you. The timetabling of trains, etc., is an operational matter for Translink. However, I think these matters should be kept under review because we are thankfully seeing an increase in numbers of passengers using public services. And as with any new operation, there will be teething problems, as I outlined in my initial response. So I am keen that Translink keeps these matters under review, and where lessons can be learned, learn them. And if new services or services have to be adjusted to accommodate the uptake, then that should be the case.
Danny Baker.
And thank the Minister for his answer so far. Would the Minister agree with me that the new Grand Central Station will be key to improving connectivity across the island?
Sir.
It has, and thus far has, despite the teething problems I outlined there to Mr Butler, it has proven successful and will encourage more and more people to use public transport, both locally and on the border corridor. There is some operational issues outside my jurisdiction, outside our control in relation to the Dublin area in terms of the increased train traffic there, but I do think overall it has been a success.
Stephen Dunn.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And staying on the same railway line, can I ask the Minister, is there any update on providing a safer railway stop at the George Best Belfast City Airport for passengers to resolve the situation where passengers are often faced with a long and dangerous walk along the Sydenham bypass?
There is currently a feasibility study ongoing as part of the All-Line Rail Review in relation as to how we have better connectivity with Belfast City Airport to ensure that we encourage more and more people to use public transport and it is safely accessible. So that work is ongoing.
Dixon.
Mr Speaker, Minister, are you prepared to give an apology to those passengers who failed to be able to get trains on Friday evening due to the volume of traffic, both at the Northern Ireland International football match and the additional Belfast Christmas public at the City Hall on Friday evening? And will you issue an apology on behalf of TransLink to those commuters who were just simply left distressed at railway stations, but on the tracks, both to and through Central Railway Station?
I did see some social media activity in regards to this matter, and I do apologise to those who were left behind and didn't get the service that they should be getting at this time. I will raise the matter directly with TransLink to see what lessons can be learned in that regard, because our message, and the message is correct, we want to encourage more and more people to use public services and public transport, but we have to get it right so people will use it.
Justin McNulty.
I think the member for Lagan Valley will agree that the train line in question goes beyond Portadown and travels to such places as Newry, Dundalk, Drogheda and Dublin. Minister, a same-day return from Newry to Belfast is 68% more expensive than from Dundalk to Belfast. Can the Minister explain why passengers travelling from Newry are expected to pay more for a shorter journey, and how does that encourage people to use public transport?
Minister.
The Dublin government has been able to subsidise in-road Éireann to a higher degree than I've been able to. They seem to have quite a healthy bank balance at the moment, and they're able to subsidise public transport to a greater degree than I'm able to. So that's the reason for it. I am aware that TransLink are making some adjustments to the prices of fares Belfast to Dublin in a bid to correct that anomaly.
Mark Durgan.
Yes, David Craig. Question 5.
Minister.
I am pleased to inform the member that for the current financial year I've been able to allocate funding to enable my department to provide a full street lighting maintenance service, with outage repairs generally being carried out within the established target of 5 working days. I can also inform you that my department has now replaced approximately 80% of its sodium lighting stock with LED units, which, as well as delivering sufficient reductions in electricity consumption and carbon production, has greatly reduced the number of street lighting outages on the network due to the longer operating lifetime of LEDs. I will continue to seek funding to convert the remainder of the network at the earliest opportunity.
Mr Durgan.
Would the Minister agree that street lighting plays an integral role, not just in road safety, but in community safety too? And in the light of recent events and what we've heard from many women about how unsafe they feel, does the Minister have any plans to improve response times, particularly where there are long-standing outages or delays?
If the member has any specific areas in question, feel free to contact my private office and I'll ensure they're followed up. But yes, street lighting provides a more safer environment for people to use pathways and walkways and active travel routes, etc. And particularly, the member's right in raising the concerns about safety for women, particularly after the recent events in Derry. So I can assure you my department will play whatever role we can in ensuring that the street lighting that's in place is serviced properly, is maintained properly. And as I say, if there's any specific areas of concern, please feel free to contact my private office.
Militia McHugh.
Chorla agus buas leis an éir fásta fahanne the Pragur Gujisha. Minister, could you outline for us what the department's policy is for replacing street lighting?
Sure. Street lighting, as I said in my original answer, there's been quite a significant change around in our street lighting over this last number of years, and members of the public will have noticed that in some areas street lighting poles and equipment has been removed because it doesn't fit into the policy which has been put in place now for a number of years. And I understand this has caused some upset in certain areas, but the current policy dictates that when street lighting has reached its age and requires replacement, it will be evaluated as to whether it meets the current street lighting policy. If it does, it will be replaced. If it doesn't meet the current street lighting policy, it will not be replaced.
John Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following on from Mr McHugh's question, the Minister will know there is many areas within our rural communities that benefit solely from the use of streetlights. Those streetlights in legacy terms have been placed there because of accident, black spots or indeed community safety. Does the Minister think it's fair that those lights to be taken away, not to be replaced, puts those rural communities at considerable threat?
Sure. Each location is judged on its own merits, and as I say, it's judged against the current departmental policy, which has been in place for a significant number of years, it has to be said. Safety and road safety and pedestrian safety is one of the characteristics of that policy and the judgment against that. The other thing that we have to be mindful of, and safety will always come first, but that if we provide street lighting, particularly in rural areas, that it can have a detrimental impact on wildlife, fauna, and also human health as well. So we have to judge all those things as well against the current policy. But where they meet our policy, they will be replaced.
Ellie Armstrong.
Mr Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Minister, I come from a rural area, and streetlights, to be honest, make it safer for pedestrians when we're walking along those rural roads. Is there a possibility, or is there a record of the removed streetlights in each of the areas across Northern Ireland that we can access?
Sure. I'm not sure, but if the member, I'll ask my private office if there's records, maybe for Strangford, maybe for the council areas, sometimes they swap over. I'll ask that to be shared with the member.
Neil McAllister.
Question number 6, please.
Minister.
The estimated cost of the North Belfast to South Belfast glider route is currently in the range of 142 to 148 million. Whilst 35 million of funding has been secured through the Belfast Regional City Deal, a considerable shortfall of some 110 remains. Work on the feasibility of extending to Glengormley and Carryduff has been finalised, and I commissioned work on the delivery options that could be implemented utilising the 35 million funding envelope from the Belfast Region City Deal. The outline business case is being finalised in line with these feasibility reports and delivery options. When my officials have concluded this work, I will be in a position to make a decision. My department has, as the member will know, has been operating in quite a difficult financial period for the last number of years, but we do plan to make progress in relation to the City Deal with the funding that is available to us.
His answer, and whilst I do appreciate the budget constraints, North Belfast is often left behind when it comes to sustainable travel, such as cycling infrastructure, greenways, etc. So what can you do in the immediate term to really kind of assure people in my constituency that it's not yet another area where we're going to have to wait for years and years for work to get started?
Mr.
I commit to the member that I am hopeful to be able to make an announcement on this in the next number of weeks. While I would much prefer to be carrying out the £140 million scheme, I can make a significant input into improving public transport options for people both north and south of Belfast by investing the current 35 million or slightly above that in the time ahead. So I do plan to move ahead and make an announcement, have works commenced to improve public transport options for people in both north and south Belfast.
Said in the coming weeks, can you be clear, are you going to announce a proceeding with glider or additional bus routes like North Belfast, South Belfast, particularly along that corridor up the Saintfield Road towards Carryduff is very congested. Air quality and congestion gets worse as we go down that. So will it be an announcement to increase bus routes, or will it be about glider being delivered?
It'll be a mixture of all, and it'll hopefully be a mixture of all. I also have to. There's quite a significant investment in providing glider routes in the actual infrastructure in terms of both the road widening, the improvement around the roads, the bus stop infrastructure, etc. So that's quite a significant investment in that. So I'll make a definitive statement of this in the next number of weeks.
Andrew McMurray.
Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
My department has been operating, as I said, in a difficult financial environment for a number of years. Officials have advised that operating within this level of vacancies has had an impact on the delivery of some operational flood risk management policy and IT functions. This also impacts on our ability to increase capital investment in both new and existing flood risk management infrastructure and hinders our ability to improve our planning, consultation, response timelines. However, my officials are mindful of the need to maintain, as so far as possible, service delivery. An example of this is that during the flooding which occurred last year, my officials quickly moved staff from non-operational roles to support the effective overall multi-agency emergency response. In addition, working in partnership with the Civil Service HR and recognising that all competitions can be brought forward at the same time, we have agreed a prioritised recruitment model that plans are being progressed on the launching of around 10 professional and technical recruitment campaigns before the end of the calendar year. The prioritised competitions aim to recruit around 300 professional and technical employees across my department, and these competitions will be used to fill vacancies within the water group.
Mr McMurray. Thank you, Minister. Just how will these vacancies affect flood risk management, public safety and coordination of public emergencies should they occur?
As I've said, during last October, when we faced flooding risk emergencies, we were able to move staff from various elements of my department to direct frontline emergency response. Though it has to be said, just following the flooding we witnessed last year, the member may recall that Storm Kieran was bearing down on us, but thankfully Storm Kieran diverted and we didn't get the worst of it. We would have faced serious challenges at that time if Storm Kieran had hit us, because staff can't work 24 hours every day, and many of my staff were out in all sorts of conditions dealing with the original flooding issue, and Storm Kieran would have presented huge problems to us. But as I say in my answer, we are running a recruitment exercise and hope to recruit over 300 professional and technical employees across my department.
I could thank the Minister for his answer so far, but could I put it to the Minister what else he's doing to improve the capacity and capability in his teams?
Minister.
As has been said many times in this chamber by many different ministers, austerity over the last 14 years has left a deep scar across our public services, and we haven't been able to recruit and maintain staff at the levels we would have. Now, as I said in my answer to the original question, I am in a recruitment exercise. I hope to bring more and more people into my department and put them out on those frontline services to ensure that we have an effective, efficient public service response to flooding incidents, but also that we're in a position to plan for flooding events, that we're in a position to have the research carried out, the works carried out that allows us then to move, whether it's a capital expenditure in terms of hard fixed flood defences or other forms of flood defences as well.
Daniel McCrossan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Minister outline whether these staff shortages are contributing to delays within the planning system, including progress of housing developments across the region?
It is having an impact, and you can see that in terms of response times from Rivers Agency. But I have made a separate submission to the Transformation Fund to recruit staff to a number of areas of my department to assist in the response times for planning applications to speed up the planning process.
Owen Tennyson. Speaker.
The new station will replace the one built in the 1970s with a new modern state-of-the-art facility that will provide a greatly needed enhanced passenger experience. It will be fully inclusive and will be a catalyst for future investment in the Lurgan area. It will also promote sustainable transport options and act as an enhanced gateway to the wider rail network across the island of Ireland. It will involve the demolition of the existing station building and the adjacent Musgrave Marketplace building to provide a new railway passenger facility. There will be an additional 60 park and ride spaces, a sheltering canopy on both platforms, and a pedestrian cycle bridge linking the station building and platforms. My department has already provided $2 million towards this project, including the purchase of land adjacent to the station for the new park and ride site. TransLink have commenced the first steps of the planning and engagement process for the proposed redevelopment of the building, submitting a proposal of application notice to Armagh City of Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council. A planning application for planning approval for the new station will be submitted to the local council by TransLink after community consultation is completed later this month.
Mr Tennyson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for that answer. And as the Minister is a constituency colleague of mine, he'll know that whilst the increased frequency of Belfast to Dublin routes is welcome, it has created some concern locally in Lurgan around increased congestion. Will these plans do anything to assuage those concerns?
Minister.
Well, firstly, in terms of the increased Belfast to Dublin connection and the closure of the lines in Lurgan, the 3 sets of gates in Lurgan, I think that it's something that could have been better managed much earlier in the application process for the additional funding under SUPB for the early service. And hindsight's a great thing, but I think in terms of planning, there should have been greater attention paid to alleviating the length of time the gates are closed in that area. And that's something my department will now have to look at along with TransLink to see how we alleviate that. But that's quite an expensive operation. In terms of the railway station, I think it sends out a signal to the people of Lurgan that TransLink and my department are invested in them by investing in this. It is, and I'm sure the member has seen the drawings as well as I have, it is a state-of-the-art building and will be greatly enhance that area of Lurgan and send out a very strong signal that public transport is the way to go.
Moving on to topical questions, I call Mark Durgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After sterling and rightly acclaimed work by DFI to progress the A5, members, especially the Minister, and even more so the public, will have been disappointed last week to hear the news of a legal challenge to the scheme. Is the Minister to update us on that and even on who the challenge is from?
I am advised that it would not be appropriate for me to name the challengers at this stage. However, I understand there may be a hearing tomorrow, just each party setting out its initial case, and there may be at some stage then an opportunity for those who have brought forward the case to be named, but it wouldn't be appropriate for me. I'm sure the vast majority of members in this House share the great disappointment that this case has been brought forward. We're all aware of the need for the A5 to save lives and to open up the North West and for greater connectivity. I can assure the member that my department and I will be defending this case very robustly.
Mr. Durkan.
I thank the Minister for his answer and welcome his commitment to face down this challenge. But is the Minister able to outline the potential or the implications of such a challenge to potential delay of the A5 scheme and the continued risk to road users?
We will be seeking a speedy hearing of this case and presenting, obviously, the arguments, as will the other party presenting their arguments. But delays in capital projects of this scale have the potential for a delay of a month can actually cost millions of pounds. Now, we're not at that stage yet, but I think if we go much further into the new year, then we are talking about millions upon millions of pounds of public money going to waste.
Mr. Dennis.
Can I ask the Minister what action he has taken regarding issues associated with the level of traffic in and around Belfast city centre?
Minister.
I have established a working group within my department which has officials obviously from roads and others, but also engaging with TransLink, the PSNI and the City Council, who meet now on a regular basis, analyse the condition of the roads in the previous evenings, but also are bringing me forward proposals on how we help alleviate the pressures on the roads in Belfast city centre and the surrounding district. I reiterate the message that we need more and more people to use public transport, and that is probably the best way to alleviate the pressures, but there's also other measures we can take, and I am looking at public advertising information, real-time information to drivers and others about the traffic issues in the Belfast area.
Dennis.
I thank the Minister for his response. So when he talks about other measures, perhaps one of those could be the utilisation of park and rides. And does the Minister agree that the increased use of park and rides can make public transport more accessible for people and it can actually help ease congestion?
Yes, and we have to make the park and rides accessible and understandable also to the drivers. And if I use the example of the Sprucefield park and ride, up to this stage it has been difficult, I'm sure, for drivers to even understand there's a park and ride there. I'm asking my officials to bring forward measures to ensure that we inform drivers who are going past that there's a park and ride there, how you use the park and ride, the benefits of using the park and ride. Those of us who are privileged enough to be able to have been driven about will note when they're sitting in traffic, the buses going past you, that's people going into Belfast who are going to be there before any of us. So let's sell that benefit to the commuter and ensure that the commuter has all the information at hand.
Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the Minister whether the Coshquan wastewater treatment work upgrades required to connect 2,500 new homes in the Cashel development in the Floyd constituency has a confirmed site and planning permission? Thank you.
Minister.
NI Water has advised me that they have not secured a site for the new wastewater pumping station at Carrish-Quinn and therefore does not have planning permission to operate the wastewater treatment works. The Carrish-Quinn wastewater treatment works cannot be upgraded until a site has been identified and secured, and then must go through the planning process. Therefore, the Carrish housing development cannot progress until a site has been identified and planning permission granted. NI Water have been in negotiations with the landlord for the preferred site since August 2023. As these negotiations to date have been unsuccessful, NI Water is also investigating alternative sites.
Okay, Ferguson.
Thank you to the Minister for your answer thus far. Can the Minister confirm it is not a budgetary issue that's holding up the casual development in Derry?
At the moment, no. If you don't have a site and you don't have planning permission, I don't see how you can spend a budget. So there's a number of barriers that have to be overcome there. The site has to be identified, planning permission has to be granted, and then the thorny question of budget comes alive.
Deborah.
And I thank the Minister for his answers so far. The Minister has said in recent times that he's looking forward to bringing developer contributions. Has he a timescale on when we will see the detail in relation to this?
Minister.
I don't have a definitive timescale. I would obviously prefer it much sooner than later. It probably will be primary legislation, so it has to be properly thought out and developed through the normal legislative processes of this House. And obviously the committee will be crucial and key to that.
And I do share a bit of concern in relation to this because time is ticking in relation to a crisis in Northern Ireland Water. There is a 145 million funding gap, of which 39 million of capital in the October monitoring round won't be just for Northern Ireland Water. Last week we had a debate on unadopted sites, and when asked about developer-led contributions, NI Water did say that they may have difficulty in getting some of those sites adopted. So what will the Minister do to ensure that there will be mitigations in relation to this within any future legislation?
Minister.
Well, my message is always the same in relation to these matters. People have to be in problem-solving mode rather than simply in problem mode. So I think it's vitally important that all of us and NI Water, whoever developers, myself, have to include in our minds is how we solve the problem. And that's where my mindset's at. In terms to your comment in relation to October monitoring round, I will announcing that I have allocated an additional 19.5 million to NI Water to assist them in dealing with the challenges they face in providing wastewater treatment and protecting the environment and other matters. So while I would like to be in a position to allocate more, I think an investment of 19.5 million is quite a significant investment.
Mr. Speaker, Minister, investment is severely discouraged by slow processes within the planning system, including in your department. There is currently a planning application for a hotel in Port Stewart that's waiting on a decision. I appreciate due diligence, but could we get there a bit quicker?
Minister.
In fairness, I think this application came into my department in early September. And it has been sent on to us from the local council, if I'm correct, which would suggest that there are, it is certainly tactical in nature and there are issues that have to be resolved. And my officials will work their way through those issues as quickly as possible, and then I will be in a position to make a decision. But at this stage, an application lodged in September, I wouldn't say is overly delayed.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you're giving it the attention. However, we have the British Open coming to Northern Ireland next year. We have a hotel that has been held up for nearly 8 years, not necessarily because of your department, but because of other reasons. So will you give this your attention, considering the mitigating circumstances around it?
I've had many a conversation with my planning officials as to how we expedite planning matters, but the member will appreciate that due process has to be followed and due diligence has to be followed. And I am acutely aware of the upcoming Open and the potential that and the need for tourist accommodation and accommodation in the area. So I can assure the member it has my full attention.
Cathal Boyle.
Could I ask the Minister whether he will allocate money from the October monitoring round towards structural maintenance of our roads?
Yes is the answer. I have been provided with a resource of 22.8 million, which means allows me to do a number of measures. I will be outlining or delivering a full winter service in line with last year's. I've also provided money to NI Water and Translink, but I also have invested around, I think it's around £15 million, both to my roads division for road maintenance and upgrades, and also in terms of street lighting.
Mr Boylan.
Does the Minister agree that there are innovative methods that the Department could adopt in the future to get smarter about roads maintenance?
Minister.
Yes, and we are, and my department does look at methods on how we can use innovative measures to improve our reaction to road maintenance, the efficiency of road maintenance, reducing the costs of road maintenance, which is always a challenge for my department. But I can assure the member that we are future focused in terms of how we deliver that service.
Alan Chambers.
Minister, my question relates to major projects like, for instance, the Sydenham Bypass project currently underway. Would the Minister's department accept that the tendered price submitted by contractors for a job like this is additionally impacted by the traditional cessation of work over the Christmas and New Year period?
I don't know if I can be actually specific about that site because I don't have the information in front of me, but I would imagine that if a contractor has equipment and staff lined up for a job, if there is a cessation of work, then there will be additional costs as a result of that. But I think it is important that we do suspend some of this work around the Christmas period and allow traffic to flow more freely, not only in Belfast but in other towns and cities as well, because it is an important part of the year for many of our traders.
Mr Chambers.
Sir, I think that, in relation to that, what you've just said, someone takes the hit. Either the public takes the hit through the tendering process or the contractor takes a hit. Would it not be more cost effective to the public purse to programme major work like this outside that period where we have that traditional cessation of work?
Sir.
Given the scale of work that we're currently undertaking, it is not always possible to have contracts delivered at a time when we find most favourable, whether it's through cost, whether it's through school times, or it may be. But we have to align our contractors to the delivery of projects when they're available, and we work with them on that, and when we have the finance to do so.
Jerry Call.
Been alluded to about a sewage infrastructure problem existing in Belfast and across the north, but it doesn't seem to apply to new hotels or other forms of housing and building. Can you explain why this infrastructure problem only applies to those versions of buildings rather than new homes?
Minister.
It applies to both. I have a lot of correspondence from developers, whether it's developing new businesses or developing hotels, wherever it may be, who are concerned that there may be wastewater infrastructure constraints that are going to hold back their developments. But as I said to Ms Erskine earlier on, we all have to be in problem-solving mode, and that includes myself, NI Water, developers and everyone else. NI Water is quite clear that there should be as early an engagement as possible with them in relation to any planning you're bringing forward, and that early engagement has to include how we resolve the problem.
Mr Carroll.
Minister, in relation to their problem solving, would you agree with me that the solution is public investment in NI Water? Would you expand upon any work that your department have done to engage with Treasury around the new capital borrowing rules, which could allow NI Water to remain public but get access to more finance?
Minister.
NI Water will be remaining public. It will be remaining public. There's no move, nor will there be any move away from it during my term in this office. I am aware that the Finance Minister is exploring all options in relation to funding moving forward. Yes, NI Water does require additional funds, as does all public services moving forward, and I will work closely with the Finance Minister on identifying how we get funding to drive our public services forward.
Mr Butler is not in his place. I call Declan Kearney.
Minister, could you outline how you hope the announced investment in wastewater treatment infrastructure from October monitoring will alleviate pressures in the system?
Minister of Development.
Thank you. Well, as I just announced, I have invested $19.5 million, which is half of the capital allocation I was given to NI Water, because I accept there are challenges in relation to both resource and capital for NI Water, as there are with all public services. But I do believe that this investment will help alleviate pressures they've been facing in the delivery of homes, the environment and other matters which NI Water have to take into consideration.
I'll end the question to the Minister for Infrastructure. Speaker, a wee minute, please.